Hi, third grade. Today we are going to work on lesson 109, and it's going to be a pretty short video because the worksheet is pretty short, but also this concept is going to seem like a lot of review because of the power-ups we've done on fractions before quarantine, but also because we've already done videos since we've been in quarantine on fractions equivalent to 1 and fractions equivalent to 1/2. Today we are working on equivalent fractions again. The difference is these are not all going to be equal to 1/2 or 1/2. So the objectives are use pictures to show that two fractions are equivalent and find fractions that are equivalent to a given fraction. So on your worksheet, they didn't do a great job of setting this lesson up because the example that they gave is a fraction equal to 1/2, and we already know how to do that. So that is valuable in accessing our background knowledge on equivalent fractions, but it's not good for teaching a new skill of recognizing equivalent fractions when they are not half or whole. So this is the worksheet in your Learn at Home packet. Says reteaching 109. You'll see all of those fractions are equivalent fractions, but they're all equal to 1/2. So it says equal portions of each circle below have been shaded. Notice that different fractions are used to name the shaded portions. So they're all equivalent to 1/2, but this one is actually 1/2, 2/4, 3/6, 4/8, 5/10. And so these fractions all name the same amount. Different fractions that name the same amount are called equivalent fractions. Equivalent means equal. So they're an equal portion of the pictorial model is colored in or shaded in for each one of these fractions. They just did halves. Now, what I do think is valuable about the way that they colored these in, and if you can see with the way that the examples are colored in, is they only have a choice of coloring the top or the bottom for 1/2. But when they got to 2/4, they colored the two that were in the same spot as the half they'd already colored in. They didn't color like one over here and one over here. Sometimes you guys like to do that on your power up. Like if it just says shade in 3/8 of this fraction, you might not shade in 3/8 that are next to each other. And that makes it harder to see when we're using pictorial models to see just by glancing that it's an equivalent fraction. That's totally fine if it just says shade 3/8 or shade 5/6 or shade 1/3. Well, that won't work because you're not coloring in more than one section, or shade like 3/5. But you need to make sure when you're using equivalent fractions and you want to see if things are equal that you're shading in the same section so that you'll be able to tell just by looking at it that they are equivalent. So I'm going to show you some examples. So I think 6 was one that I had said. So I've overdone the pizza analogy. I'm going to do rectangles. But let's say here I have a rectangle. And I need to draw then another rectangle that's about the same size. Remember, suspension of disbelief. I'm not an artist. Oh my goodness, the one on the right is really not very many straight edges on that one, but you will at least be able to get the idea. So I'm going to divide this into 6. I'm going to divide this into 3. And I want to show that 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. So I'm going to color in one of those thirds. Now, if I color in 1/6 here and 1/6 here, I did color in the same portion on the left that I colored on the right, but it's harder to just glance at it and say that those are equivalent if I didn't have up here 2/6 and 1/3 is equal. I will show this another way with 1/6 because I could have drawn, there's a lot of different ways you can draw fractions. let's say all right, I'm going to switch the sides because it doesn't matter what side it's on, it's still going to be equal. 1/3 is equal to 2/6. If I color in one of the three, I need to, on this side, color in thirds that are in the same area, or sixths that are in the same areas where I colored in the third. So I would color here, and I need to color this one in, because if I color this one in, I can't just glance at it and say that those are equivalent. I want to color in the same exact spot where I colored in my thirds, because then I can look at this and I could say, yeah, those are equivalent if I was a better artist. On your worksheet, it is super quick. And really, there's only 2 problems that you can do for your assignment. The other part's going to have to be extra credit. And you're going to need to know this part that we just went over to do the extra credit part on your assignment. So on the top for 1 and 2, they colored in equivalent fractions, and they want you to say, what are these pictorial models representing? So what's the numerator? What's the denominator for the left one? What's the numerator? What's the denominator for the right one? They're equivalent because you can see they colored in the same sections. You can look at it and see they're equivalent. However, they weren't divided into the same number of pieces. So their denominators and their numerators will be different. Same thing with the circles on the bottom. They want to know what's the numerator and denominator. What's the numerator and the denominator? Now, the bottom part is the part that is going to be extra credit. So you actually have more extra credit than actual assignment on this worksheet, because on the Google side, you won't be able to just shade those in. So if you do this by hand and you want to upload a PDF of this worksheet completed by hand, you can do that. Or if you did the top part electronically, you can, on a scrap piece of paper, redraw these fractions and color in equivalent fractions. So they're telling you right now 3/6 and 1/2. So they want you to show that 3/6 and 1/2 are equal. So I'm going to have to color on the first one, on the 3/6. I'm going to have to color it in the same section that I choose to color my 1/2. Same thing with 6/10 and 3/5, 8/12, and 2/3. You want to color in the same sections so you can see clearly that they are equivalent. So that's a good opportunity to get some extra credit if you would like a little bump in your math grade.